Inside his house, the protagonist, Yuma Mitaka, a second-year high schooler, is watching the news about the large sinkhole that emerged near Harumi Pier. Although the sinkhole is being described as a small-scale dungeon, it will be considered the sixth dungeon that has appeared in Japan if the authorities acknowledge it as such. Shifting his attention to his phone, Yuma was watching a video in which a person visited Sapporo's White Dungeon. Arriving at the 18th floor, the man encountered what he described as fairy-looking monsters. With just his thunder magic, the man was able to defeat the monsters and obtained a magic gem. The man then informed his viewers that a pure white moonstone could fetch about 1.4 million yen. Yuma then turned his phone off, commenting that what he had just watched was a total joke. It has been 7 years since the dungeons emerged. At first, the underground labyrinths caused fear and anxiety. Nowadays, it is considered a major industry that has been accepted by society. Magic gems born from the unknown created in the dungeons are used to perform magic. Even though something so unrealistic appears, only a few people end up profiting from it. Those backed by large corporations, those with high physical abilities recognized by the government, and lastly, those who are popular in the first place and can get sponsors. Yuma thought about how unfair it was for people like him, where nothing changes and he does not even get a chance. Hearing his dog Musou outside, Yuma went out to check on him. Wondering if someone had entered the yard, Yuma decided to go out and check. Yuma admitted to himself that he was not smart or talented, which is why his life hadn't amounted to much. Yuma felt like he would never amount to anything until he found a hole in his yard. Taking out a flashlight, Yuma ducked and saw a strange cave inside the hole. Seeing an unfamiliar creature, Yuma wondered what it was. Returning to his home and checking through his phone, Yuma learned that the creature he found was a slime. The common colors for a slime are blue, light blue, red, and green. However, Yuma became more curious as the slime he found was different, which made him wonder if the creature he found was actually a slime. Watching the overseas dungeon news, Yuma learned that there is a different type of slime that is very quick and has a metallic color. Although there was no clear footage for Yuma to compare the slime with, he was quite convinced that it was the same thing. Yuma was shocked to hear that there was no report of such a slime being subjugated, making him think that if he defeated the metallic slime, he would be the first to achieve it in the world. Even though an opportunity to defeat a slime was in front of Yuma, he was very hesitant as he was not confident in himself. However, Yuma's mind was easily changed after watching the YouTuber mention that the magic gems dropped by monsters can be traded for many millions of yen. Holding a hammer, Yuma returned to the hole and stood in front of the cave. Although he was much bigger than the slime, Yuma was still afraid to approach the monster. Hitting the slime, Yuma realized that the slime was very hard. Shocked when the slime suddenly bounced all over the cave, Yuma was not able to protect himself and ended up getting hit by the slime. Applying ice to the bruise he received, Yuma then warned Musou not to go near the hole, portraying the metallic slime as a vicious monster. Wondering how he could defeat the slime, Yuma tried searching on the internet. However, he only became more enraged when he read a report that even a child could defeat a slime. Reading about the abilities of the slime, Yuma wonders if the monster in the cave is truly a slime, as it did not possess the typical qualities of one. Reading the article further, Yuma learned that powerful monsters in the depths of dungeons could only be defeated through the use of magic. Unable to use magic, Yuma was left with no choice but to give up. In a split second, Yuma remembered that metal is weak against fire, which made him wonder if fighting the metallic slime with fire would be effective. Returning to the hole, Yuma had now armed himself with a burner that is used for home barbecues. Seeing the metallic slime just sitting inside the cave, Yuma approached the slime slowly. Pointing the burner at the slime's face, Yuma was again surprised as the slime started to move, bouncing off the walls of the cave. After being struck by the slime on his leg, Yuma returned home feeling defeated. Finally deciding to give up, Yuma planned to pretend that he had not seen the slime in the first place and cover the hole with a board or even report it. Once again feeling the unfairness of the world, Yuma blamed the hole for bothering him and causing him pain. Thinking that he should no longer get involved, Yuma wondered why he was still invested. Checking through his belongings, Yuma found his cooling spray. Considering the effects of the cooling spray, Yuma thought about how it might work against the metallic slime. Yuma planned to stop the slime's movements with the cooling spray and attack it with the burner. With his final attempt, Yuma decided that if his plan still did not work, he would give up for good. As the slime went deeper into the cave, Yuma had no choice but to go inside. Initiating his plan, Yuma blasted the metallic slime with the cooling spray to hinder its movements. Seeing frost forming on its surface, Yuma then used the burner. Surprised by the huge fire, Yuma did not notice that the burner was using flammable gas. Realizing that he would have to be more careful not to injure himself, Yuma was puzzled as the gas stayed at the back of the hole and did not come out. Seeing an opportunity, Yuma believed that if he hit the weakened metallic slime now, it would be enough to defeat it. Smacking the slime with the hammer he had brought earlier, Yuma thought that he had finally defeated the slime after seeing only its broken shell. Although no magic gems dropped, Yuma still felt happy about defeating a slime. The next day, Yuma was awoken by Musou barking. After heading downstairs, Yuma was told by his mother that their dog had been barking all morning and ordered him to check it out. When Musou dragged Yuma to the hole, Yuma had a gut feeling. Removing the boards, Yuma confirmed that his feeling was correct as the slime had returned inside the cave. At the International Dungeon Research Organization in Tel Aviv, Israel, a research expert named Ethan Noble was staring at a stone tablet. Ethan was then approached by his assistant, Clark Griffin, who informed him that he never got tired of looking at the stone tablet no matter what. The huge stone tablet, discovered on the middle floor of the world's deepest dungeon, Orpheus, bore an inscription stating that the king of the monsters had awakened and that the world would head toward the path of destruction. Walking to school, Yuma felt exhausted as he could only think about the slime day after day. Yuma was surprised when his childhood friend, Kaede Ichinose, greeted him from behind. Kaede was disappointed in Yuma for not greeting her properly. Kaede then pointed out how Yuma used to barely make it to school on time but now was getting to school quite early. Commenting on how they would be in year 12 when spring came, Kaede wondered if Yuma had become self-conscious. Kaede asked Yuma if he knew what Rui had been doing lately. Yuma did not have an answer for Kaede since he was in a different class from Rui. Yuma was surprised when Kaede mentioned that Rui wanted to find work in the dungeoning business in the future. Calling Rui a bandwagoner, Yuma shared his thoughts about dungeoning being quite unstable. Yuma looked puzzled when Kaede informed him that the dungeoning business was currently booming. Kaede then shared with Yuma about the special types of dungeons, including the White Dungeon, which had the magic gems that could treat injuries and illnesses. Such reasons alone had gained the attention of healthcare companies, which some companies were now investing in. Kaede was amazed by Rui, as he already had a clear future in mind. When Kaede asked Yuma if he had already thought about his future, Yuma suddenly felt empty and tried to avoid the question. Back in the hole, Yuma was watching trivia on his phone about monsters respawning regularly after being defeated. Such a system was being used by others to grind for magic gems to their heart's content. However, the downside of such a system was that the drop rate was about 1%. Seeing the metallic slime respawning back inside the cave, Yuma suddenly thought about how he would obtain one high-quality magic gem if he killed the metallic slime every day for 100 days. Knowing that the metallic slime was a rare monster, Yuma believed that a magic gem from a rare monster would likely fetch $1 million. Yuma could not contain his excitement just thinking that he would get $1 million every 100 days. Suddenly remembering Kaede mentioning how amazed she was by Rui, Yuma came to his senses and disregarded what he was thinking as he became solely focused on his new plan of getting rich, which involved the metallic slime. As Yuma became excited, he never once realized the difficulty he would face in achieving his easy future. Killing the metallic slime day after day, Yuma became more and more depressed since there were no magic gems dropping. Realizing that his plan had a harsh road, Yuma was slowly depleting his pocket money from purchasing the cooling sprays and gas burners without making any profit. Seeing his master sob, Musou tried to cheer him up by licking his tears. Yuma then felt encouraged and thought to himself that he should not lose heart now, as the money he had invested would be paid back by the gem that was worth $1 million. Wondering if there was a sale for the cooling spray somewhere, Yuma again felt down when he remembered Kaede asking him about his future. Unsure about what lies ahead in his future, Yuma asked himself if he was really okay with what he was currently doing. As days and months passed by, Yuma finally met Rui, greeting him with a good morning. Seeing Rui carrying so many chocolates, Yuma realized that it was Valentine's Day. Impressed by how many chocolates Rui had received, Yuma asked him what he would do with the chocolates. After telling Yuma that he would share the chocolates with his family, Rui then offered some to Yuma, to which Yuma immediately refused and told Rui that he didn't like sweets. Yuma lied, as he had always loved sweets. Yuma remembered that Rui was interested in finding work in the dungeoning business and wondered if he should ask Rui personally. Kaede then asked Yuma if he had received any chocolates from her, as he hadn't gotten any in the past few years. Yuma looked clueless, as he had always received chocolates from Kaede. When school finally ended, Yuma was standing at the school gate when he was suddenly hit in the butt with a bag. Realizing that the person who threw the bag was Kaede, Yuma asked her not to hit him in the butt again. Kaede just snubbed Yuma, telling him how she had been thinking of giving him chocolates but couldn't do so since Yuma went home quickly. In reality, Yuma wasn't planning to go home right away. He had wanted to bump into Kaede and had ended up loitering around the school gates. Kaede then handed Yuma the chocolates she made, believing that Yuma wasn't getting any chocolates from anyone this year. Feeling embarrassed, Yuma told Kaede not to assume things, informing her that he had already received 1 or 2 chocolates. However, Yuma immediately shut his mouth when Kaede asked him to show the chocolates. After Yuma accepted defeat and thanked Kaede for the chocolates, Kaede then said her goodbyes. Unable to control his curiosity, Yuma asked Katie why she was giving him chocolates but not Rui. He felt embarrassed again when she pointed out how Rui received plenty of chocolates while Yuma didn't. As Yuma's childhood friend, Katie believed it was her responsibility to keep things balanced. The next day, Yuma was unleashing his anger on the metallic slime, as he couldn't believe that Katie only gave him chocolates out of pity. After killing the slime with a rock, Yuma's rage vanished and was replaced with emptiness. Thinking that nothing good ever happened to him, Yuma turned around about to exit the cave when all of a sudden a burst of flame emerged from the dead slime. Curious about what was happening, Yuma was shocked to see a magic gem floating in front of him. After killing metal slimes day after day, Yuma had finally received his reward on the 18th day. Returning home, Yuma could not contain his excitement after finally obtaining a magic gem. After killing the metal slime for half a year, Yuma wondered what he should buy with his 1 million. Thinking of the things he could buy, Yuma suddenly stopped and questioned if the item he obtained was really a magic gem, as he had imagined them to be sparkly. Looking at the item, Yuma realized that it looked more like iron. Searching for information about his drop item online, Yuma stumbled upon an article called Black Dungeon. In contrast to the White Dungeon, which produces magic gems with healing powers, the investigation and exploration of the Black Dungeon had not advanced, solely because it lacked popularity. The drops received when killing a monster inside the Black Dungeon were not magic gems but a metallic ore known as magic ore. There was data suggesting that magic ore boosts physical abilities, but one cannot feel the increase. The labor and results did not match, even pointing out that working out was a much faster way to achieve similar results. Therefore, the trade price of magic ores was extremely low. Putting the ore into his drawer, Yuma then lay down as he came to realize that the hole in his yard was none other than a Black Dungeon. Despite all of Yuma's struggles and the depletion of his pocket money, he felt that the reward he received was not enough. Remembering his conversation with Katie from 5 months ago, Yuma realized that in just 2 months he would be in year 12. Believing he was about to achieve his dream, Yuma felt deeply disappointed after spending not just his time but also his resources. With Cade's words now stuck in his head, Yuma thought that he now had to think about his future. Thinking about how Rui, who had already chosen his own path and was working towards it, Yuma snapped himself back and told himself that his problem had nothing to do with Rui. Yuma then encouraged himself to achieve his future at his own pace and to do his best moving forward. The next day came and Yuma was once again woken up by Musou barking. Still not fully awake, Yuma told Musou that he could now stop barking as he had already filled up the hole yesterday. However, Yuma was surprised to see that the hole was open and even found the slime back inside the cave. Exhausted and without profit, Yuma pleaded with Musou to stop barking at the slime. Picking Musou up and bringing him inside the house, Yuma ended up receiving a lecture from his mother for being too noisy and disturbing the neighbors. Yuma was left with no other choice but to return to the cave with the slime. Back in his room, Yuma kept sobbing as he could no longer take the disappointment. Regretting not reporting the Black Dungeon to the authorities, Yuma was now left with no other option but to accept his fate, which included being scolded. He blamed the item for being a magic ore instead of a magic gem, which made him feel depressed. Yuma suddenly thought of an idea. Since he could not sell the magic ore, he figured he might as well use the magic ore himself. Watching tutorials and guides online, Yuma learned that by swallowing a magic gem or magic ore, one would be able to use magic. It was also noted in the tutorial that the gems and ores contained mana, and those people who did not have mana but tried to consume the item would not gain its magic benefits. One last reminder in the guide was for people to check their mana index first before consuming the item. After watching the tutorial, Yuma guessed that he should have a good amount of mana after killing the metal slime so many times. Checking online, Yuma learned that he could buy the mana index meter just like purchasing an electrical appliance. After spending $100 of his own money, Yuma was able to purchase the mana index meter. Obtaining the device at a cheap price even though it was second-hand, Yuma still thought that the purchase was a win. Feeling excited, Yuma could not wait to test out the mana index meter. However, when he tried to turn it on and off, the device remained silent. Yuma immediately returned to the store and complained to the staff that the device he bought from them was broken. The staff apologized at first, but then informed Yuma that there was no malfunction in the device after testing it. To prove to Yuma that the device was working properly, the staff presented 3 types of magic gems that had different index readings. Yuma looked puzzled after witnessing how the device worked just fine. When Yuma mentioned measuring the magic ore, the staff then remembered how magic ores generally have a low mana index. Upon learning that if the index is low, it would not show up in the reading at all, Yuma then mentioned using the device to scan his own mana index, asking the staff if he also had low mana since the device did not show any reading when he used it. The staff guessed that Yuma had misunderstood something and explained that humans can only absorb a part of the mana from the monsters they kill. If one defeats a monster with a mana index of 100, their own mana index will increase by only 1. Yuma faced the realization that his hard work of defeating the slime multiple times would never amount to significantly increasing his mana index. Yuma was once again sobbing while swinging at the park, realizing that he had wasted $100 on something that could not even help him. Yuma then encouraged himself not to give up after killing so many slimes, refusing to believe that he had not gained any magic at all. Yuma was also hesitant to swallow the magic ore without checking properly, as he did not want to defecate a 2-centimeter iron lump. Startled by a flyer that landed on his leg, Yuma's eyes glowed when he saw that the flyer was for a free mana index reading at the blue dungeon. Arriving at the dungeon, Yuma immediately headed to the mana measuring room. Nervous, Yuma prayed that his hard-earned money would not be in vain. However, after receiving the test result, Yuma realized that the half-year he spent defeating the metal slimes did not increase his mana index at all. The staff then explained to Yuma that their device could measure down to 0.01 units, which meant that there would be no error on their part. Seeing Yuma slowly leaving, the examiner laughed at Yuma for trying to test out if he had mana. As the examiner mentioned that killing multiple slimes would not increase a person's mana, he was surprised when their machine suddenly malfunctioned. The examiners were left wondering if the machine was broken, as it just kept spitting out blank paper. The examiners still did not believe that the machine would just break down, as it was worth millions of dollars. Yuma could not hold back his tears as he stared at the zeros shown on his mana index meter result. Depressed that half a year's worth of effort had amounted to nothing, Yuma noticed the sign for the blue dungeon and remembered that the dungeon was also in the same place. Taking the trouble to visit the place, Yuma decided to at least have a look inside. Yuma saw a woman reminding everyone who planned to enter the dungeon to prepare themselves before going in. Yuma wondered if preparing was really necessary, as he believed that the blue dungeon was just a slightly larger version of the hole in his garden. Yuma's jaw dropped as he did not expect the hole to be so large. Seeing the hole's enormous size, Yuma was curious if dungeons could really reach such a size. A staff member then approached Yuma, asking him if he was a first-timer. After checking Yuma's entry pass, the staff then reassured him that he would be fine on floor 1, as there would not be any danger there. Yuma was puzzled when the staff asked him if he had brought weapons with him for defeating the monsters inside the dungeon. Yuma then remembered that when he bought the mana index meter, he had seen a stall that sold stun guns and batons. When Yuma told the staff that he had not brought any weapon, the staff then presented a variety of weapons for Yuma to choose from. When Yuma asked if it was really okay for him to use the weapons, the staff reassured him that it was fine, as long as he returned the weapon afterward. Yuma ended up choosing a hammer, as he felt it was the right fit for him due to the experience he had against the metal slime. After taking the stairs, Yuma finally reached the doors of floor 1. Entering the floor, Yuma was amazed by the structure alone. Yuma had not expected the floor to still have light even after going so far down. However, Yuma believed that the reason the place did not feel dark was the many people on the floor. Observing all the people on the floor, Yuma realized that they were all formed into groups, which left him alone. Since everyone was looking for monsters, Yuma decided to take the opportunity and fight a monster in the blue dungeon. However, he wondered if there were still any monsters left with so many people on the floor. Noticing something moving beside him, Yuma turned and found an ordinary slime. Not expecting the slime to be so slow, Yuma could not help but compare it to the slime in his garden that jumped all over the place. Yuma used the hammer to attack the slime, which surprised him with how easily he defeated one. Yuma remembered that defeating a slime would not increase his mana index, which depressed him even more, as he asked himself the point of his hard work over the past 6 months. Regardless of his depressed state, Yuma still continued to hunt down slimes. After killing 6 slimes and more, Yuma was becoming more annoyed that he still hadn't gotten a single item drop. Yuma overheard a woman nearby talking about how she had obtained a 0.2 carat blue sky aquamarine magic gem, and believed that it was worth around 2,000 yen. Instead of selling the gem, the woman mentioned she would use it for herself so that she could use magic. After listening to the woman, Yuma wondered if his thinking was on the same level as an elementary schooler. Staring at his magic index result, Yuma accepted that he could never use magic no matter how many slimes he defeated. Meanwhile, at the International Dungeon Research Organization, Clark was approached by another researcher who asked him to pass along the envelope to Ethan. Clark asked the researcher if it was really okay for him to be the one to hand Ethan the envelope. The researcher then shares that he does not like Ethan, as he finds Ethan to be an odd and rude person. Even though Ethan is the type of person who judges things based on whether they are interesting or not, the researcher still cannot change the fact that Ethan is an outstanding scholar who was the first to discover mana. The researcher is certain that Ethan's expertise will be necessary for what he is handing over. Before leaving, the researcher tells Clark that he, too, should have a look at what is inside the envelope. After taking a look at the contents, Clark then passes it over to Ethan. According to the paper, mana is leaking out of the dungeons, and as time goes on, the amount will continue to increase. Both Clark and Ethan agreed that the situation itself would become a problem in the future. The reason why monsters are not coming out of the dungeons is that there is no mana above ground. However, if the mana continues to leak outside the dungeon, it will only be a matter of time before monsters start appearing on the surface. Ethan admits that the problem should be taken very seriously, but he does not think that it is an issue that requires them to panic for the time being. When Clark asks Ethan why he is so carefree after receiving such an important report, Ethan points out that the increase in density is still negligible, and that the only monsters likely to come out of the dungeon will be low-level monsters, which pose no immediate danger. After giving Clark a piece of advice, Ethan then informs Clark that there is something more important in the report. According to the report, the mana density in the upper levels is gradually rising, which means that monsters from deeper levels will start moving upward. Even after sharing this crucial piece of information with Clark, Ethan reassures him that they do not need to worry about that problem, as there are other issues that take precedence. Curious, Clark asks about the problem Ethan is referring to. Ethan asks Clark if he understands what mana overflowing outside dungeons entails. Ethan shares with Clark the possibility that people might be able to use magic outside the dungeons. Later that night, Yuma was in his room, wondering what he should do next. Since the start of summer break, Yuma had defeated the metal slime without fail. It took Yuma 181 days to get his hands on the magic ore drop. Although the magic ore's magical effect and value are considered insignificant, Yuma still wants to use the magic ore as a form of celebration. Even though Yuma is very eager to try the magic ore, he still could not use it. Researching magic ores online, Yuma learned that there are essentially no records of them. Wondering if his magic ore contains any mana at all, Yuma regretted not having the magic ore tested at the Blue Dungeon's measuring device. The quickest way for Yuma to check if the magic ore is usable is to consume it. However, he is hesitant to do so, as he feels uneasy about the idea of an ore passing through his system. Using the internet, Yuma searched to see if it would be safe to pass a 2-centimeter ore. After disinfecting the magic ore and preparing some tea, Yuma then swallowed the ore but did not feel anything. When Yuma felt a warm sensation in his stomach, his eyes glowed as he happily wondered if he had managed to absorb the magic ore. Hoping that he would gain an impressive power, Yuma immediately went outside and started punching and kicking the air. Breaking a sweat, Yuma realized that a person can only use magic inside the dungeon. Yuma was startled when Mamazu began barking at him. When Yuma tried to calm Mamazu down, he remembered that Mamazu only acted out when the metal slime was nearby and when he was hungry. When Yuma tried to pat Mamazu, he looked confused when he saw that his own hands had changed. As Yuma was running towards his room, his mother began to wonder what he was up to since Mamazu still hadn't stopped barking. Looking at his own reflection in the mirror, Yuma saw that he had turned into metal. Wondering if what was happening to him was the result of the magic ore, Yuma was then startled at how pitch black and sharp his arm had turned. With the magic that turns one's body into metal, Yuma then questioned the logic of how he could use magic outside of the dungeons. Questioning what type of magic he had obtained, Yuma suddenly wondered if he could even go back to normal. Finding his new appearance very terrible, Yuma tried to encourage himself that he would not have a metal appearance for the rest of his life. Spiraling down, Yuma kept telling himself to turn back. Yuma finally broke down as he couldn't return to normal. Wondering what his next steps were, Yuma then blamed the metal slime for what had happened to him. Noticing how he looked exactly like the metal slime, Yuma then grabbed his hammer and hit his wrist. Not feeling any pain, Yuma was able to confirm that he was just as hard as metal. Using the tools he had used to fight against the metal slime, Yuma also confirmed his theory that he was weak against fire and cold. Noticing how his skin slowly turned normal, Yuma became extremely happy. Relieved that he was no longer all metal, Yuma then made fun of himself for being startled by how he looked. No longer feeling the metal sensation, Yuma wondered if that was the limit of the magic ore. The next day, Yuma tested out his theory and was able to turn into metal again. Yuma used the ore expecting nothing, like taking an exam without studying and not expecting that he would awaken an actual ability after being told that he had a 0 mana index. Seeing how his skin turned back to normal, Yuma was able to confirm that he could only be in the metal state for 5 minutes, and then return to normal. When Yuma tried to turn to metal again, he looked puzzled as he remained normal. Yuma guessed that he could only use his ability once a day. With his awakened ability, Yuma thought that he would be a big help inside the dungeons. Using his ability and fighting in the lower levels, Yuma believed that beating the monsters would be like a walk in the park. Imagining that he would also become like the streamer he had watched the day before, Yuma watched a video in which the streamer shared with everyone that the monsters in the deeper levels could not be defeated with physical attacks, as they had sturdy bodies capable of withstanding gunshots and shelling. The streamer also shared that there were different varieties of monsters, starting from fire-breathing dragons, strange wind-blowing birds, a demon clad in lightning, and even a spirit that controlled the cold. All of the monsters that were mentioned could only be defeated by magic and magic alone, as the streamer stated. Yuma, whose attack capability is physical and weak against both cold and fire, realized that he is still useless. Thus, Yuma is still unable to think of a way to use his ability. Thinking about his future is something that Yuma regularly worries about, but in the end, he just decides to laze around while envying the rich and famous people. Since Yuma had nothing better to do, he decided on going to a bottom-tier university that had low entry requirements. Even though Yuma thought that beating the slime was a bother, he still continued beating the metal slime every day as a morning routine. Spending his time every day lazing around, Yuma did not notice that a year had already passed since he discovered the metal slime. Meanwhile, inside the Red Dungeon in the Ibaraki Prefecture, people were running for their lives and calling for help as they encountered a dragon with sharp scales. The woman who was about to be devoured by the dragon was fortunately saved by Louis, who was only using a knife. With one slash, Louis was able to inflict a serious injury on the monster. When the monster was about to use its power, Louis hastily covered the monster's mouth with his coat, creating a blind spot. He then stabbed the monster in its throat, defeating it in the process. Louis was then approached by the others, asking him if he was all right. Louis reassured the others that he was fine, as the coat he borrowed for the trial session saved him by being fireproof. Wanting to make sure that Louis was indeed fine, the man asked for his name. Louis then shared his name and told the man that he was a third-year high school student. After the incident, Louis was now sitting in an office when a person came in and introduced himself as Ishikawa of the Elseed Corporation, the supervisor for the dungeon trial session that happened the other day. Ishikawa thanked Louis for saving his employees and then proceeded to inform Louis that the monster he defeated had its vital points precisely pierced. When Louis was asked by Ishikawa if hitting the weak spots of the monster was his plan, Louis responded that it was his plan as he had studied up on the monsters in the dungeons. In the case of the monster Louis encountered, he had already studied it and was able to recall its weak spots. Impressed by Louis, Ishikawa then asked him to hold out his hand. Ishikawa handed over the magic gem that the monster dropped, known as the Vermilion Silver Ruby. Ishikawa believed that Louis deserved the gem as he was the one who defeated the monster. With a mana index of 700, Ishikawa estimated that the ruby would fetch around 14 million yen at market price. Shocked at how expensive the ruby was, Louis was hesitant to take it. Ishikawa pointed out that during the trial session, the one who defeats the monster will take home the item drop. Not only does Louis deserve the gem, but Ishikawa also believes that the gem would be useful for Louis in the future, and asks him to take it with him. Days passed by and it was already the 12th of December. Yuma still felt sleepy and turned off the television as he did not want to listen to celebrities or famous people. Yuma's attention returned to the television when the news reported that the dungeon trial being held by Elseed encountered trouble when a salamander appeared. It is known that salamanders usually inhabit the 10th floor and lower, but it surprised everyone when it appeared on the upper floors. Yuma's heartbeat increased when he saw and heard in the news that a woman was rescued by a high school student. Not just any student, but none other than Yuma's childhood friend Louis. Arriving at school, Yuma immediately saw Louis at the school gate being interviewed. When Louis was asked if he was afraid of facing the salamander, Louis responded that he was so absorbed in fighting that it overcame his fear. Yuma was shocked when he heard that the magic drop Louis obtained was worth 14 million yen. Yuma was even more surprised when Louis informed the reporter that he would not sell the magic gem, as he planned to use it for himself. Louis then announced that with the help of the magic gem, he planned on becoming a seeker in the future. When Yuma heard that Louis was being recognized by Elseed, he asked Kaede what Elseed was. Surprised that Yuma did not know about Elseed, Kaede informed him that it was the biggest dungeoning corporation in Japan and the company that Louis wished to join. In order for Louis to get in, he planned to go to the National Training Institution after he graduated. The Seeker Training Institution is an institution that nurtures seekers. Kaede was in disbelief at how clueless Yuma really was, pointing out to Yuma that he did not care about dungeoning or his future, which was also the reason why he did not know much about the corporations affiliated with the profession. Kaede revealed to Yuma that she planned on joining Louis and entering STI after they graduated. With the ability to use healing magic through the white magic gem, Kaede pursued the idea of being a messiah. Yuma told Kaede that being a seeker was really hard and that there was a high chance she might not become one. Katie informed Yuma that she had already spoken with Louie and taken an aptitude test, which revealed that she had potential. As Katie finally found her dream for the future, she wanted to try her hardest to achieve it. Thinking about dreams and the future, Yuma realized that his friends, whom he deemed a rival, and the person he thought he'd be with forever, had now found something they wanted to achieve while he was stuck with nothing. As Yuma asked himself what he should do with his future, he couldn't think of anything that interested him at all that related to his future. However, Yuma also had no plans of giving up, knowing that he had to do something to avoid being left out. Pulling out his books, Yuma believes that the only difference between him, Katie, and Louie is their scholarly ability. In order to catch up with his childhood friends, Yuma plans to start studying seriously. However, in just a matter of seconds, Yuma gives up. Yuma asks Musou if he has it in him to achieve his future. Having been unable to find any dreams or things he wanted to pursue, Yuma has been feeling lost. With no clear goal, Yuma does not know what to do, as he also could not find any motivation. Louie, Yuma's childhood friend, is an attractive guy with outstanding grades and is even good at any sport. Louie has all the best qualities that a woman would dream of in a man. With the latest news of Louie defeating the salamander, Yuma knows that Louie is now a step closer to achieving his dream. Kaede, also Yuma's childhood friend, used to poke fun at him and is a nosy person but is still a good person. What surprised Yuma was that Kaede had become more feminine, which is something new. Raised in a single-mother household, Katie had always dreamed of working in a place that helps people in need ever since they were kids. In the past, Katie wanted to enroll in nursing school, but now she has focused her attention on a new goal of becoming a messiah. Learning about what his childhood friends are trying to achieve, Yuma has no doubts that they can achieve those goals. Seeing Louie and Katie heading toward their dreams, Yuma realized that whatever makes his friends so enviable yet radiant at the same time is something that he is unable to see. Yuma wished that he had something that he could wholeheartedly aim for. Deciding to continue with his daily routine since then, Yuma has been obtaining 2 or more magic ores and consuming them afterward. The duration of metallization was extended from 5 minutes to 15 minutes. However, it is still deemed a useless upgrade. Following his daily routine of defeating the metal slime, Yuma was shocked to find out that the metal slime had now returned as a golden slime. Aside from being golden, Yuma was also taken by surprise when the golden slime bounced much faster than the metal slime. Yuma tried using the cooling spray. However, the spray does not work. Finally facing a new type of opponent, Yuma pulled out all of his tools as he was determined to defeat the golden slime. After an exhausting battle, Yuma was able to defeat the golden slime. Picking up the drop from the golden slime, Yuma immediately recognizes it as another magic ore. However, the ore is golden. Later that night, Yuma tried searching online about the golden magic ore, but could not find any results at all. Using the mana index meter, Yuma was able to find out that the ore still had 0 mana. Although Yuma can use the golden ore, it is most likely that it has no value as a magic gem. Seeing how the magic ore looked a lot like gold, Yuma thought that he might be able to sell it. However, his hopes of selling the ore were immediately shut down, as there were many requirements needed for him to prove the gold's purity. Swallowing the magic ore, Yuma wondered what he should do if his body suddenly turned into gold. Calling forth his power, Yuma was puzzled as there were no changes in his appearance of being metal at all. Day after day, Yuma had been getting more magic ores than usual. Yuma himself was now finding the situation to be odd, as he had been killing metal slimes for a year and had only gotten 1 ore in that span of time. However, now magic ores had been dropping for 5 days straight. There was only one thing that came to Yuma's mind, which was that the golden magic ore increased its user's luck by raising the drop rate to 100%. Yuma then wondered if his new advantage also worked for the drop rate of magic gems. As Yuma wondered if his struggles were finally over, he planned to test it out by killing normal slimes in the blue dungeon. Yuma was so enthusiastic when going to the blue dungeon. However, he became depressed again when he returned with no magic gems. After his visit to the blue dungeon, Yuma continued with his routine and ended up obtaining 14 magic ores. After consuming enough magic ores, Yuma's metallization could now be maintained for a maximum of 70 minutes. Just when Yuma was about to wallow in his situation, he could not believe it when he saw another color variation of slime. After the golden slime, a red slime had now appeared. Yuma was then taken by surprise when the red slime suddenly attacked him. Not angry, Yuma pointed out to the red slime that he did not like using his ability, as it ripped up his clothes. However, he also could not back down from a one-on-one challenge. Now fully metal, Yuma easily deflected all of the red slime's attacks. Using his burner to inflict damage on the slime, Yuma looked puzzled as the slime was not hurt at all, making Yuma believe that the slime was immune to heat. Using his phone, Yuma searched online for how to defeat the slime. Following the article he found, Yuma prepared his newly devised weapon against the red slime. Planning to cover the red slime with rust, Yuma was very confident that he would achieve victory. When Yuma finally defeated the red slime, he was very happy. However, when he returned to the black dungeon the next day, he was surprised to see the slime reviving again, but now sporting a different color variation. Upon learning that the new slime was immune to cold, Yuma once again faced another obstacle. Preparing flammable materials for his fight with the slime, Yuma once again achieved victory against the new type of slime. When Yuma returned to the black dungeon the next day, he was no longer surprised to see another slime with a different color. After defeating the new colored slime, Yuma was able to collect 4 more colored magic ores, making him wonder what was happening as he now kept on fighting different types of slimes. Although Yuma had a lot of questions that he wanted answers to, he decided to consume the new magic ores for now, since it would still not change the fact that what he obtained were ores, which were something he could not sell. Yuma then removed his clothing, as he wanted to see for himself the changes in his body. Activating his metallization power, Yuma looked puzzled as he saw himself in the mirror, now sporting a different appearance. Yuma then became worried as an object grew out of his head. Seeing how scary his new look was, Yuma told himself that he would return to normal once his skill wore off. He almost forgot to search for information about what he had consumed. For white dungeons, they generate white or transparent magic gems that enable the user to wield healing magic. For red dungeons, they enable the user to wield fire magic. For the blue dungeon, they generate blue magic gems that enable the user to wield water magic. For yellow dungeons, they give the opportunity to allow a user to wield lightning magic. Green dungeons enable the user to wield wind magic. Lastly, black dungeons generate magic gems that strengthen the user's body. Since the magic ores had the same color as the magic gems, Yuma assumed that each ore also had the same attribute as the corresponding dungeon. Testing out his theory, Yuma tried burning himself using the burner. Yuma became happy when he did not feel the heat. Testing out the cold spray, it was the same as with the burner, as he could not feel the cold. With red ores being fire resistant and blue ores being cold resistant, Yuma became more excited as he theorized that the other ores he consumed might also prove that he was resistant to the other elements that corresponded with the dungeon colors. Yuma now felt amazed with his newfound powers, as he was now fully resistant to fire, water, wind, and lightning. With his newfound powers, Yuma remembered that he still hadn't found his dream or goal to pursue. It didn't matter how much his body turned into metal or how much attribute resistance he acquired, as it still would not be useful in his daily life. Regardless of not having a goal, Yuma still wanted to acknowledge the reward he had gained from all of his hard work. Lying on his bed, Yuma assumed that the next color he might get would be white, which he looked forward to. However, what Yuma faced next was not a white slime, but a huge black slime instead. On the day that Yuma defeated the golden slime, Ethan wondered what was happening when he saw the researchers causing a commotion, only to find out that a Duke-ranked beast had been defeated. Based on their knowledge, only 2 Duke beasts and 1 Lord beast had been defeated, and the recent one was the 3rd Duke to be defeated. Ethan understood why there was so much commotion since it had been 3 years since a unique monster had been defeated. What intrigued Ethan more was that it was a black ore that had been crushed. While the matter was still being confirmed, Clark assumed that the one who defeated a Duke beast must come from a significant clan. When Ethan mentioned the list of countries that have large black dungeons, Clark noted that Japan was also on the list, although the possibility was low due to the lack of progress in exploration. Ethan did not expect that there would be daring people who would dive into a black dungeon, knowing the low profit, which clearly was not worth the risk. Back in the present, Yuma could not believe that the slime that respawned was huge, making him feel relieved that slimes couldn't get out of the dungeon. With the new metal slime, Yuma wondered if he could really defeat such a monster. However, he also could not help but imagine the item drop if he defeated the slime. Using all of his resources, Yuma then transformed into his metal form, and realized that he had forgotten to take off his clothes. Not seeing the slime's attack, Yuma became nervous as he questioned what had happened. Looking back at the slime, Yuma noticed that the slime could now mold a variety of weapons. When Yuma received a hit from the slime, he was relieved to learn that he wasn't hurt, making him wonder if his metallic form was tougher than he expected. Seeing the slime molding different types of weapons, Yuma cried out as he deflected all of the attacks, informing the slime that the attacks would not work. Although the attacks did not hurt, Yuma's clothes still suffered significant damage and were now badly torn. Yuma was still confident that he would win, as not only was he unharmed, but he also still had sprays and burners at his disposal. After fighting for an hour, both Yuma and the slime were exhausted. Yuma then wondered what his next step should be, as he had now used up all of his sprays and burners. Anger welled up in Yuma when the slime knocked his hammer away, an object Yuma had used since the beginning. Pissed off, Yuma punched the slime with everything he had, defeating it in the process. When Yuma finally returned home, he ended up receiving an earful from his mother. Staring at the magic stone he had obtained, Yuma felt confident and believed that his mana should have increased. Unfortunately, when Yuma scanned both himself and the magic ore, the device showed that they had a magic index of 0. After consuming the magic stone, Yuma initially felt a warm sensation inside him, but then later realized that the heat was much more intense than anything he had felt before. Relieved that the sensation had finally settled down, Yuma wondered if the feeling he experienced also caused a change in his appearance. Eager to test his new ability, Yuma forgot to take off his clothes as he activated his skill. Yuma looked puzzled as his transformation was now different, with black liquid covering his entire body, giving him a monster-like figure. With his newfound strength, Yuma wondered if he had also gained other special abilities, like the giant slime's weapon transformation. Testing his theory, Yuma immediately confirmed it when he was able to form various types of weapons in his hand. Yuma also learned to move in a liquid form, which even startled Musou. At the same time Yuma was fighting the big slime, the chief researchers at the International Dungeon Research Organization were holding an emergency meeting. The researchers discussed the abnormal events surrounding the Orpheus tablet, which had been happening for 4 consecutive days. Chairman Maya Berger pointed out that 4 lords had been defeated in succession after the Black Duke was defeated 2 weeks ago. The physicist, James Bright, pointed to the biologist, Li Haoran, insinuating that their country was hiding something. As the two got into a heated argument, Ethan then interjected, asking everyone if entering 4 dungeons simultaneously was even possible in the first place. In the past, a lord found in America had been defeated by 15 seekers, including the Flame Emperor Albert, also known as the strongest seeker. Even the group with such powerful seekers still encountered 7 casualties. James then informed Ethan that they had no explanation for why the ores on the tablet were breaking. Ethan shared his thoughts that their assumptions might have been wrong from the start. The ores on the tablet were arranged in a colored pattern, and everyone assumed that monsters from dungeons of the same color were involved. With the question in their minds of whether the red, blue, yellow, and green lords that were defeated came from the same dungeon, the researchers believed there might have been an unreported dungeon. Expanding on his theory, Ethan suggested that the person who defeated the Duke in the newly discovered Black Dungeon had continued to defeat the lords in quick succession. Although all they had was speculation, Ethan believed it was the only logical explanation they had. With the record of a Duke and lords being defeated, Ethan believed that the person who had defeated these high-ranked beasts was now on par with, or even stronger than, the world's strongest seeker groups. As James stood up, rejecting Ethan's theory as ridiculous, their meeting was suddenly interrupted by Clark, who informed them that one of the 6 kings, the Black King, had been defeated. Ethan smiled, believing that his theory might not be completely wrong. Yuma woke up feeling exhausted. The huge slime he killed the day before had consumed all his stock of cooling spray and burners. With no tools left to fight another metal slime, Yuma already anticipated that another strange slime might appear. After greeting Musou, he was surprised to find that Musou was no longer barking. When Yuma checked on the Black Dungeon, he was puzzled to see that the hole was no longer in the yard. He began to wonder if the slime he killed yesterday was the boss that permanently closed the Black Dungeon upon its defeat. Annoyed that the hole had suddenly vanished, Yuma tried to think of the advantages of its disappearance, such as no longer needing to wake up early in the morning to hear Musou barking. Returning to his usual route, Yuma felt dazed. With the hole in his yard finally gone, he guessed that things would be less hectic from now on. He thought of what he could now keep with the Black Dungeon gone. Although the hole had caused him so much pain that he wished it would disappear, Yuma found it hard to understand the sense of loss he felt seeing it gone. He was startled when Kaidi suddenly shouted a greeting at him. After Yuma responded, Kaidi expressed surprise at how early he was heading to school, and shared her relief that he had finally woken up early for once. Yuma, however, thought to himself that he couldn't tell Kaida how fighting the huge slime had taken so long and made him late the previous day. Instead, he lied and told her that he had simply overslept. With the Black Dungeon no longer in his backyard, Yuma believed he wouldn't be late anymore and reassured Katie that she wouldn't have to worry about him being tardy again. Later that night, Yuma was staring at a piece of paper. Following the advice of those around him, he had taken the entrance exam for a university that accepted him as long as he submitted the necessary documents. With campus life awaiting him in the spring, Yuma wondered if he was truly content with his decision. All his life, he had never had a specific goal or dream, which was why he never fully immersed himself in anything, as his interests were always shallow. Despite being aware of the kind of person he was, Yuma continued pretending otherwise, which only made him feel lamer. However, looking at his phone's search history, it was filled with dungeon-related topics. He remembered how he had spent most of the past year in the Black Dungeon in his yard. Although he hadn't had any admirable motivation behind his actions, he had still given it his all. Yuma never thought he would chase an unrealistic dream, knowing that his past self would have viewed such ambitions cynically. Now, however, Yuma felt confident in saying that he wanted to become a seeker. He opened the website for the STI, located in a semi-government Sector 3. The training institution was established 2 years ago. It is the first place in Japan to successfully capture monsters. As it doubles as a research facility, it conducts daily research on dungeons and monsters, including the development of cages, rooms, and artificial dungeons using magic gems. The institution aims to discover and cultivate talent through a 6-month curriculum. Exams are held every 2 months, and those who fail are expelled. For the self-promotion class, Yuma lists his abilities and explains how he acquired them. He notes that he is resistant to fire, water, lightning, and wind. His second power, which he obtained from the huge slime, is the ability to transform parts of his body into weapons, something he believes no other seekers can do. Another power Yuma has is the ability to transform into a metal form. By visualizing a gel-like state, he can transform himself into liquid metal, enabling him to move through narrow spaces. Yuma suddenly becomes nervous as he realizes that if others learn about his powers and their origin, he could be exposed for breaking the law. Upon further online research, Yuma learns that entering and exiting a black dungeon is strictly regulated compared to other dungeons. Discovering the laws associated with black dungeons leaves him frightened. Determined to avoid trouble with the government, Yuma decides to hide his abilities. He writes down his second weakness, the inability to use magic. He then focuses on his third and biggest weakness, the need to join an organization qualified to enter dungeons. Only corporations and certain government-authorized groups are allowed to explore deeper levels. To address this, Yuma plans to seek employment at a dungeoning corporation. Realizing the challenges he might face after the entrance exam, Yuma wonders what he can do next. The following day, Yuma hides behind a door and calls for Katie's attention. When he tells Katie that he needs a favor, she is surprised as he suddenly bows and asks her to teach him how to study. Kaide is curious about Yuma's sudden change of heart, knowing he has already been accepted into a university. When Yuma mentions that he wants to learn more about dungeons, he apologizes after Kaede realizes he is trying to enter STI. After some reflection, Yuma tells Kaede that he is serious and wants to do his best. Acknowledging his resolve, Kaede informs Yuma that STI emphasizes aptitude tests more than written exams. If Yuma studies diligently, his chances of passing the written test will not be 0. Knowing Yuma's tendency to complain, Kaede asks if he is truly ready for the challenge. From that day on, Yuma focused on studying. On the day of the examination, both Yuma and Kaede arrived at STI's main building. Kaede informed Yuma that he would be on the 4th floor, while she would be taking the Messiah exam on the 2nd floor. After finishing the written test, Yuma was surprised at how smoothly it went, making him feel even more indebted to Kaede. Although the written exam was over, Yuma was still very nervous because the main exams were next. Without knowing how the practical exam would be conducted, Yuma could only wonder what the test would entail. Overhearing his mumbling, another student informed Yuma that the exam involved fighting a monster kept by the institution and measuring the candidate's mana gain afterward. Happy to find someone her age, the student introduced herself as Kagurazaka. Kagurazaka was even more pleased when she learned that she and Yuma were the same age. After their mana indices were checked, they were both informed that their values were 0. Kagurazaka encouraged Yuma, saying there was no problem starting at 0, and pointing out that the important factor was how much mana one could gain moving forward. She further explained that mana is a seeker's lifeblood, and that to use powerful magic for longer periods, a significant amount of mana is needed. She also mentioned that a barrier created by magic could protect the body and even reflect bullets. The acquisition of mana varied greatly between individuals, and even if 2 people defeated the same monster, the amount of mana gained could differ. She referred to this as the mana gain rate. An examiner then instructed them to stab the slime and have their mana indices measured again after defeating it. Kagurazaka was startled when she heard Yuma express concern that his mana index might not increase. Yuma was puzzled when Kagurazaka assured him that passing was still possible even if his mana index was low. She explained that some people have a low mana gain rate but a high upper mana limit, and this varied from person to person. With newfound confidence, Yuma believed that his hard work would now pay off. Slapping both cheeks, he told himself not to get cold feet and to do his best. An examiner called for everyone's attention and warned them about the possibility of injury during the test, asking them to listen carefully. Pointing behind him, the examiner informed them that it was the only artificial dungeon in Japan, and that the practical test would be held inside. An artificial dungeon is an experimental facility that reproduces an environment similar to a dungeon. It is used for researching monsters that can inhabit it, and magic that requires the presence of mana. The researcher informs the applicant that the door behind him is the first underground floor of their artificial dungeon. Once they enter the dungeon, they find a box with a ball inside it. The test is simple. The candidates would have to bring the ball back within the allotted time. However, monsters will be released, and it is hoped that the candidates will avoid them as they proceed. The candidates were very confused as to why they have to avoid the monsters, making the weapons useless. The researcher explains that the key for the test is speed, and that the courage to run through a dungeon without being intimidated by monsters is also a vital part of being a seeker. Regardless of one's talent with equipment, the researcher promises the candidates that they will certainly struggle in the real world if they do not have the courage to back it all up. The researcher also clarifies that the time it takes to clear the challenge is what will be evaluated. The monsters released are the same red slimes used for mana measurement. Though the monsters are not much of a threat, the researcher still advised the candidates to exercise caution. With the exam about to start, the candidates will be called by their number. Yuma was relieved to learn that Kagurazaka was correct. However, upon hearing screams coming from the artificial dungeon, the two start to wonder if they would truly be fine inside. When it was Kagurazaka's turn inside, she didn't expect to encounter an army of red slimes who had already taken out multiple candidates. Kagurazaka managed to get the ball and returned after 2 minutes and 58 seconds. When it was Yuma's turn, the red slimes immediately felt fear sensing Yuma's presence. Yuma was starting to get nervous after listening to Kagurazaka talk about the things he experienced inside. With the test about to start, Yuma immediately notices some clumps sticking onto the walls. Assuming that he was being let go, Yuma passed through and took the ball. Yuma looked very confused since the slimes were just staying in one place. However, he is still relieved that the slimes aren't being aggressive towards him. Yuma assumes that the slimes may have exhausted themselves after dealing with so many examinees. In Yuma's result, he managed to get the ball in 2 minutes and 28 seconds, which is the fastest that had cleared the test so far. With the exam finally over, Yuma parts ways with Kagurazaka. Yuma receives a message from Kaede that her exam will take much longer and suggests that he head home first. After doing all that he could, all that remains is for Yuma to wait for the results. After a week, Yuma receives a letter congratulating him as he passed the exam. After being scolded by his mother for being too loud, Yuma remembers that his parents still think he is going to the university that he initially chose. Yuma goes to his mother and asks when his father would be back, as he wants to discuss something with them. When Yuma's father finally gets back, Yuma informs them that he won't be going to a university, but instead will be undergoing training at the Seeker Training Institution. After explaining what the STI is, Yuma's parents are surprised as they've never seen their son showing interest in becoming a seeker. Yuma surprises his parents even more when he reveals to them that he had already taken the test and passed it. Yuma apologizes for not telling them his plans but reassures them that he is serious about becoming a seeker, also wanting to challenge himself. Knowing that a seeker's job is dangerous, Yuma is asked by his father if he would be able to handle it after graduating from STI. After being asked by his father if he is prepared to risk his life, Yuma can't answer right away. Having experienced a dungeon already in their backyard, Yuma responds that he is aware the path he has chosen is not easy, and would be a dangerous and difficult path. However, Yuma has already prepared himself for any possible dangers. Although Yuma's parents are not very pleased with his actions, his father is still happy that Yuma became honest and opened up with them. Yuma receives his parents' blessing to proceed with his plans, with the condition that Yuma does not withdraw from the university he was already admitted to, and just make it a leave of absence instead. Yuma becomes very excited and thanks his father, promising that he will not disappoint. Although Yuma's parents are not very delighted by the sudden change, they know that they wouldn't be able to stop Yuma and thus choose to support him the best they can. During the entrance ceremony, Yuma and his old friends have once again joined together in achieving their dreams and goals. Rui doesn't know that Yuma wanted to become a seeker, and guesses that Kaede helped Yuma study for the exam. Kaede responds that she did, and is just very excited that the three of them are together again. Yuma is finally standing next to his two old friends, and plans to work with them at STI. However, Yuma does not expect that he would be placed in a different class, while Cade and Rui are in the same class. Yuma learns that STI classes are divided based on the grades from the entrance exam, which means that Class 1 is for the students who excelled in the exam. The two who explained the classes to Yuma then introduce themselves: Ryusuke Ashiya, a student who is about to turn 30, and Hamanaka, who is 23 years old. Upon learning that Yuma is the youngest, the two welcome him to the bottom class. Yuma starts wondering about the difference between himself and Rui, and he remembers that both Rui and Kaede have diligently studied every day and worked hard to achieve success, while he, on the other hand, lacked motivation. Hamanaka states that there are two students in Class 1 who broke the record for the highest mana gain rate ever recorded, and is certain that one of them is Kagurazaka. Yuma did not expect that the person he had met would be someone so influential, known as the princess of the Kagurazaka Dungeon Pharmaceuticals Company. The other record breaker is another high schooler that Elsade is very interested in. Ashiya tells Yuma that he may know the guy, since he was featured on the news, the one who saved people in the Red Dungeon. Yuma realizes that the two are talking about Rui. Although Yuma did not expect it, he understands how it's possible that Rui has one of the highest mana gain rates recorded. Yuma starts to question how he can even close the gap between himself and Rui, who is talented and hardworking. When Hamanaka mentions a rumor he heard that a student in their class had 0 mana gain rate, Yuma immediately starts sweating bullets, as he knows Hamanaka is talking about him. When Hamanaka sees Yuma's paper, he is shocked that the rumor is true, and the person he was talking about is right beside him. Ashiya is still impressed with Yuma, even though he didn't have an outstanding result, pointing out that Yuma passed the exam despite having 0 mana gain rate. Seeing Yuma getting all depressed, Ashiya cheers him up by showing his own mana gain rates, which aren't far off from Yuma's. Though they don't have talent for mana gaining, Ashiya states that it's still too early for them to give up, as there's a possibility they may just be late bloomers. Yuma feels encouraged and forms a solid bond with Ashiya and Hamanaka, calling themselves prodigies who mature a bit late. The three pour all of their energy into working hard, starting from simulation training, studying dungeon-related laws and company affairs, to spending the rest of their days subjugating monsters in the Blue Dungeon. Yuma approaches one of the researchers, expressing his wish to do extra training in the artificial dungeon. After learning more about Yuma, the researcher is very impressed by how passionate he is. Since his numbers are the lowest, Yuma is left with no other option but to work harder than both Ashiya and Hamanaka. Yuma trusts that his abilities will eventually awaken and plans to devote everything he has, hoping that his mana index will increase. However, during the course of their training, Ashiya and Hamanaka's mana indexes increased significantly, while Yuma's remained at 0. Ashiya mentions that they must raise their mana index to at least 50 by the midterm exams, or they will be expelled. Increasing their mana wasn't just a problem for their group. Among their Class 3 classmates, the number of depressed-looking students continued to rise. Yuma receives a bit of encouragement after getting a message from Kaidi. He tells himself that he has to pass the midterm exam somehow and graduate from STI together with Rui and Kaida. At the International Dungeon Research Organization, Ethan asks his colleague for any updates regarding his request. No matter where Clark searched, there was no information about the Black King. Since they have not fully deciphered the meaning of the stone tablet, Clark wonders if the Black King was truly defeated. However, Ethan does not doubt the tablet and believes that a Black King was indeed killed. After compiling opinions about the artificial dungeon, Clark relays a message to Ethan that a request has come in for him to make a report on it. Hearing the words artificial dungeon triggers Ethan's anger. After explaining that many accidents have occurred in artificial dungeons, Ethan states that getting involved in them is not good for their team. He explains that he has always been against artificial dungeons from the beginning, especially the research being conducted on them. Since there are still so many unknowns about dungeons, trying to artificially reproduce them is laughable to Ethan. He states that when science is overestimated, that's when people start asking for trouble. 2 months have passed since Yuma enrolled at STI, and the class is now conducting a joint class dungeon exploration simulation. Yuma encounters Rui and asks him if the rumors about going to the 3rd floor of the underground artificial dungeon are true. Rui confirms that they are and mentions that 15 people were already selected from Class 1 to participate. The other 2 selected were Kagurazaka and Kaida. Since there are 2 Messiah cadets, Rui believes their presence is for protection. During the training, Rui explains that they'll use the map to reach the 3rd floor and bring back some magic stones. Yuma notices Rui's sword, which Rui reveals is imbued with magic. By embedding magic stones in the weapon, one can use powerful magic by pouring mana into it. After hearing rumors about the Crimson Silver Ruby, Yuma asks Rui if he has already used it. Rui confirms the rumors, expressing how eager he is to test his magic during training. The magic stone Rui found in the Red Dungeon was the Crimson Silver Ruby, which has a mana index of 700 and is valued at around 14 million yen. Being able to use the magic stone easily, Yuma assumes that Rui's mana index is already over 700. After saying goodbye to Rui, Yuma tells himself that he needs to get his act together as the gap between him and Rui keeps widening. Inside the laboratory area, the researchers were preparing for the training. Curious about Adama's condition, one researcher asked about it. Another responded that Adama has been obedient. However, Persephone, on the other hand, was a bit agitated but has since calmed down. The researchers are confident that Persephone won't be able to break through the reinforced glass, even if it goes on a rampage. Staring at the egg they've been monitoring for a while, the researchers wonder if it will really hatch. After checking for signs of fetal movement, they confirm that what's in front of them is truly a monster egg. One researcher expresses concern about the danger the monster may pose when it hatches. The egg was found on the 36th floor of the Green Dungeon, a floor they had deemed safe, and he points out that once it hatches, it will still be just a baby. Another researcher reassures him that even if a dangerous monster hatches from the egg, it still wouldn't be able to escape since there are so many seekers stationed on the floor. The researchers are suddenly killed, their heads severed right after noticing movements in the EKG. Inside the STI monitor room, a staff member reminds the students about the dangers within the dungeon, even if it is an artificial one. Yuma is very impressed when he sees Kaede and Kaguraza on the monitors. Ashiya overhears that not just anyone can use magic-imbued weapons, as one needs a certain aptitude, and believes Kaede and Kagurazaka must have it in spades. Yuma believes that Rui will easily complete the training. All of a sudden, an emergency is announced throughout the facility, ordering everyone to evacuate. Students begin to panic, wondering what is happening. Looking at the monitor, Yuma grows concerned for his friends, wondering if they can hear the emergency warnings from inside. Yuma is left speechless when he sees Kaede step on an unstable part of the floor and fall through it. He immediately reacts to save his friend, surprising both Ashiya and Hamanaka, who ask him where he's going. Although Yuma only caught a glimpse of the student's face who fell, he is certain it was Kaede. Everyone is now alarmed after seeing Kaede fall inside a hole. Rui tells himself to not falter in the face of the enemy, and that they have to calm down first and assess the situation. Rui informs everyone that something has happened below, and that the alarm is for that reason. Rui volunteers to go down and help Kaede and asks for everyone to evacuate. The other students who heard Rui wanted to offer help as well. However, Root cuts them off, telling them to not worry, as he also believes that the search would go faster if he helps Kaede by himself. The others were easily convinced, being that they know the difference in abilities between them and Rui. Hearing the conversation, Kagurazaka volunteers to join as well, stating that if the standard is the difference in ability, then she is fit to join. Rui instructs everyone to get out quickly and to inform the security that they will be heading down below. Understanding the order, the other students prayed that both Rui and Kagurazaka would be safe. Rui apologizes to Kagurazaka, as well as thanking her for volunteering. Puzzled, Kagurazaka points out that it is the right thing to help a classmate out. The two jump inside the hole and immediately notice the darkness that surrounds them. To give them a better view, Rui casts a light with his magic. The two saw the debris. However, Kaede is nowhere to be seen. Rui's worry grows more, wondering where Kaede could be. Rui is certain that if Kaede fell in that same spot, then she should be staying still. Kagurazaka then calls for Rui, telling him that she has found a trail of blood. From what Rui observes, he is certain that Kaede didn't walk away on her own. Rui believes that Kaede was dragged by something while she was injured. With Kaede in danger, the two agreed to hurry up their search. Meanwhile, Yuma observes his surroundings, wondering how he can sneak into the dungeon mixed in with the others. Unfortunately for Yuma, his cover was blown, and he was asked what he was doing out there. Yuma wondered if the person in front of him was an explorer who was in charge of security. Yuma explains to himself how he is just very worried about his friend who went into the dungeon. The security told Yuma that the students in the dungeon will be rescued by them and that Yuma must follow their teacher's instructions and evacuate to a safe place. Yuma understands the orders that came from the explorer. However, he is also certain that they will not be prioritizing the search for Kaede. With that in mind, Yuma thought that he can't leave the safety of Kaede to them, and that he must go search for her himself. While Yuma was thinking of ways to get in without anyone noticing, a man pushing equipment suddenly passed by. Yuma realizes that that equipment is to be brought into the dungeon. Yuma finally has an idea, planning on hiding himself amongst the equipment. After confirming that nobody is looking, securing a blind spot from the security camera, Yuma grabs his chance. After transforming, he then turns himself into a liquid form and hides inside the equipment. Yuma was very pleased, stating how his plan was a success. Yuma asks for Kaede to wait for him, as he is now headed to save her. At the STI Artificial Dungeon BSF laboratory area, the explorers who came to check for any survivors were shocked by what they saw. They then realized that the situation is far more worse, with everyone in the laboratory dead. A blonde explorer pointed out how all of Kaede's reinforced glass is now broken and that there are no monsters inside it. The moment the man mentioned that the monsters are now outside, a monster suddenly appeared and devoured the man's head. The other explorers ask the man if he is okay and hurriedly go to save him. Meanwhile, somewhere in the facility, another humanoid monster goes to a glass barrier and easily destroys it with its sharp limbs. With the glass broken, it is revealed that another huge monster is inside it. Back at Yuma's hiding spot, the explorers were now carrying the equipment to the back. When they finally saw the bag where Yuma hid, it was then mentioned that the bag contains the enchanted armaments and is ordered to be brought as well. When the explorer carried the bag, he mentioned how the bag is unusually heavy as he felt like his shoulder was going to pop out. Annoyed to hear the comment, the other explorer states that the equipment he is pushing was obviously much heavier. Hearing all that, Yuma felt apologetic to the old man who's carrying him. The reason the bag is heavy was because Yuma was inside it. Yuma was able to sneak in but wondered where Katie could be. Yuma couldn't peek outside while being carried around. Hearing the explorers talk, Yuma recognizes them to be the voices that belong from the selected group, and that the student they are talking about who fell, Yuma is certain that it is Kaede. Since Yuma is not hearing Rui or Kagurazaka's voices, he guesses that the two are helping the search for Kaede. Hearing the orders to evacuate to all the upper levels and to hurry themselves to the 4th level, Yuma thought that Kaede must be in the 4th level. Yuma gets a new idea and plans to have the other explorers carry him around. Yuma continues to listen and hears how they talk about Kaede, the student who fell. When an explorer stated that they had found something, they then learned that it was a monster and immediately had their weapons out. Seeing the bag being unzipped, Yuma thought that things were starting to get dangerous. To avoid being grabbed, Yuma temporarily evacuated to the bottom of the bag. Peeking outside of the bag, Yuma learns that he has reached the 4th level. With no one looking in his way, Yuma grabs his chance. Skipping away, Yuma is still worried about the monsters that he may encounter. Yuma left the subjugation to a professional detective as he still has to go and help Cade. When Yuma saw the monster that the explorers were about to face, the first thing Yuma heard from the explorers was that the monster could possibly be the mantis. The others were surprised to hear a monster's name from overseas. From what the explorers know, Mantis is a deep-level monster. The explorers can't believe there's a monster that can't be defeated without multiple high-level seekers. With one slice from the mantis, all of the explorers' bodies were cut into 2. With the remaining strength of the explorer, he requests backup for the rescue team. The explorer reports that they've encountered a monster on the 4th basement floor, and is certain that it is a deep-level monster, Soul Mantis. At the lower levels, Kagurazaka was starting to get annoyed, as she stated that she can no longer take it. Rui asks Kagurazaka if she's tired, to which she responds and tells Rui to not be stupid. Kagurazaka was starting to get grossed out and wishes to clean things up very quickly and to hurry. Rui asks Kagurazaka, wanting to confirm with her if they had actually defeated 100 monsters. Still annoyed, Kagurazaka responds that she didn't count and had no plans on counting. Kagurazaka points out how there are animal-like monsters and bug-like monsters in their world, yet she wonders why only the bug-like monsters are being collected. Rui guesses that it is because the bug-like monsters are easier to raise once captured. Kagurazaka still finds the bugs gross, even if they are easy to capture. Kagurazaka wished someone had pointed that out before breeding the monsters. Kagurazaka mentions that her wind magic, as well as Rui's fire magic, are very effective against bug types. Kagurazaka also finds it helpful that the monsters are running away from them. Rui agrees and thinks that all they need to do is to look for Kaede. Rui suddenly stops as he feels danger after seeing a humanoid monster in front of them. Kagurazaka mentions that she remembers seeing that type of monster in class. Rui agrees with Kagurazaka, but still wonders why the vicious monster from the Green Dungeon, Afrakun, is in the academy. It is a monster that manipulates steel threads that can cut through anything. Rui is certain that they cannot beat the monster in their current state. What gives Rui more hope is the possibility that Kaede might be at the end of the passage. Using its strings, the monster launches an attack at Rui and Kagurazaka. Both were surprised when their weapons were easily destroyed. With more debris falling, Kagurazaka tells Rui that they must run away since they can't do anything. Rui was very much annoyed as he himself admitted that he is completely outmatched. Rui vows to help Cade even if he has to go a different route. Meanwhile, a voice spoke, stating, "It's like a maze and that he doesn't know where to go." It is revealed that the voice came from Yuma, who has been hung upside down. When Yuma finally sees the monster, he finds it gross. Seeing that he is being tied up, Yuma felt all slimy and wonders what the threat is. Yuma checks his surroundings and sees that something is happening below him. Yuma was shocked when the monster came up to him. Getting dizzy, Yuma asks for the monster to stop poking him. Yuma tries to escape by becoming liquid metal. However, he suddenly felt something and realized that he still got caught because the clothes were stored inside the metal. Yuma thought that it would be bad if his clothes would be torn off, so he decided to turn his whole body into a blade. Yuma was very pleased as he successfully escaped. Now on the ground, Yuma asks the monster how dare it poked him like that. Yuma then turns to his armored monster form and states that he is going to save Kaede and plans to finish the humanoid monster very fast. Seeing Yuma as a threat, the monster of Afrakun screeches at Yuma, launching a vicious threat attack. However, Yuma did not think of the attack as a threat and easily cut them off by swinging his blade arm. As the two clashed with each other, Yuma realizes that the Afrakuni monster is not as strong as he assumed it to be. With one pinch from Yuma, he blew the monster off. Confirming that the monster is dead, he states that the ant-woman subjugation has completed. Yuma remembers Hamanaka saying that the Institute keeps lots of monsters for training in the royal dungeons, and guessed that the monster he had fought was one of the training monsters that the Institute kept, and guessed that it is the reason why it is weak. Yuma then turns to the magic gem and wonders if the monster even dropped one. Yuma remembers that the magic gem is not his priority and that he does not have much time to look for it. Yuma goes back to his quest, which was to find Katie quickly. Hearing more rumbling sounds, Yuma found himself in an area that is full of strange holes. As Yuma turned, he saw Katie being taken by huge centipede-like monsters. Seeing his friend, Yuma was enraged and told the monster to get away from Katie. Yuma again turned his arm into a huge blade and stabbed the monster's head. Yuma then shifts his attention to the centipede's body, squeezing it tightly until it breaks. Yuma's act led to the monster releasing Katie. With Katie now no longer within the monster's grasp, Yuma proceeds in slamming the centipede as hard as he could, which also resulted with the monster's death. Now with the monster gone, Yuma runs to Katie. Yuma wonders what he should do and even starts thinking of the worst, which is that Katie may have already perished. Yuma felt relieved after hearing Katie breathe and confirmed that she is still alive. Yuma then thought of Katie's injuries and contemplated if he should move Katie around too much. Hearing Katie snore, Yuma couldn't believe that Katie still had the guts to sleep without knowing what's on her mind. Yuma starts imagining how he has come to save Katie, a familiar development which he had read before in a manga, a trendy fantasy thing. The one where princesses and princes appear. Seeing himself, Yuma mentions how he looked like a total prince. When Katie finally regained consciousness, he muttered Yuma's name. However, seeing Yuma's monster form, Katie screamed and fainted again. Surprised by the sudden twist of events, Yuma asks Katie what was wrong and to pull herself together. Looking at his hand, Yuma realizes the reason, which is that he is still in his monster form, and apologizes to Katie for it. As Yuma plans to take Katie to a safe place, he wonders if he is on the right path. To Yuma's surprise, the centipede monster had risen. Now captured, Yuma did not expect for the monster to still be alive. With the two struggling, both Yuma and the centipede ended up falling inside one of the holes. Both Rui and Kagurazaka were shocked as they heard a sound nearby, which they then decided to take a look at. Rui did not expect to see Katie laying on the ground. Checking on her status, Kagurazaka reassures Rui that Kaede is still alive. Kagurazaka then suggests that they now head back since they already found Katie. Kagurazaka points out that they will have no choice but to advance without encountering any demons, and that they must proceed with caution. Rui agrees and states that if they ever run into the humanoid monster again, it would be the end of Volume 1. Since they do not have any weapons anymore, Rui was now relying on Kagurazaka to secure a route for them. Kagurazaka understands and tells Rui to leave it up to her. Meanwhile, Yuma finally regained consciousness after falling to such a height. Looking at his surroundings, Yuma guesses that he might be at the 5th level. Yuma states that the centipede monster is doing something awful, and that he has to go back to the 4th level to help Katie. When Yuma finally saw the centipede monster again, he was surprised when the soul mantis showed itself. Now facing more monsters, Yuma becomes more curious as to what those things were. That's all for now till chapter 12. Please view the comment below.